Could you maybe share more about the various stages of HopSkipDrive and maybe how it's evolved as a marketplace?
Yeah. So we started as a consumer marketplace, and we were really providing rides to families. And we grew pretty quickly in that marketplace. I think there is a lot of demand for that. I think it is hard to bring supply to that, and I think what we found was, families tend to be, there is a lot of regularity, and with kids, you are going to, you're going to school, you're going to soccer, you're going to dance, but the needs might be a little bit more ad hoc in terms of when exactly parents need to have the holes. I always think about, as parents, you're sort of Sunday night kind of thinking about the week and what the week looks like and figuring out your holes in that week. And it's hard to aggregate significant demand in that way, and it's very unpredictable. And so when you're thinking about matching supply and demand, it's just it becomes really challenging. And I think we saw that, like, the consumer business was never going to scale at venture, like the kind of venture scale that you would need. The margins, while much better than what you see in Uber and Lyft, were still pretty tight. What we realized was that there was this huge opportunity in the schools side of the world. And we started really with the private schools that we were driving kids to, but quickly discovered school districts have a lot of transportation needs that are federally mandated and highly individualized. And what I mean by that is students with special needs, students who, and on the students with special needs side, what that means is a student who has a child who has some type of special need, and that can be child has dyslexia, child is on the spectrum, child broke their leg and can't get on the school bus for a period of weeks, to child has a physical challenge and might be in a wheelchair and needs specialized equipment. I mean, it's a very broad range, but those students will have individualized education plans. If their local school doesn't have services that they need, that plan might include transportation to another school in the district, or even a non-public school that has those services. So you can imagine it might be really hard to route that child on a school bus, right? There are other students who are experiencing homelessness or who are in foster care, who have the federally mandated right to stay at their school, regardless of what their housing situation might be. So you can imagine a child who's in foster care might move 4 to 5 times a year. And that can mean potentially switching schools. Credits don't transfer. That can lead to, it's one of the contributing factors to why the graduation rate is so low for some of these vulnerable populations. But one of the biggest barriers to these federally mandated rights is transportation. How are you going to get that child there? Child moves 20 miles away. Again, you can't reroute a school bus for that child. Or child moves at 10:30 at night. You cannot get that kid there the next day on a school bus, but a service like HopSkipDrive can be really helpful to ensuring that there is no transition in that child's education. And so this is a pretty big chunk of what school districts spend on transportation every single year. It's about $8 billion of a $25 billion market. School districts spend $25 billion a year on student transportation. And this is demand that is much more aggregated and much more scalable than the consumer side of the world. And so we realized that, and we realized that we were a great solution, and we were meeting this real unmet need in this market that has massive structural problems. There's a huge bus driver shortage. It's highly expensive. It's highly inefficient. And this was all pre-COVID. And, we're really finding product market fit. But it was interesting. We were a consumer business. Our apps were designed for consumers. A school district doesn't want to go into an app and set up rides for 200 kids, right? Like, that's a bad experience. School districts are not going to connect a credit card to Stripe to pay for this, right? And so we had to build an accounts receivable business, which created, by the way, a huge working capital issue, which we didn't realize at first, because districts they're great payers, but they pay like 45 days later. we are paying drivers weekly, right? And so now it's like, oh, that happened. But we needed to start invoicing, we needed to start collecting, we needed to build out Salesforce and hire a sales team to be able to reach all of these districts. I mean, it was a total transformation of our business and our team and our culture. And I have to say, I'm incredibly proud of how the team managed that. And most of the team made it through that transition. There were some people who were just like, I love consumer, I live consumer, I bleed consumer, and this really isn't for me. But it was a pretty big shift in every function of the org had to change pretty massively in some way, shape, or form. It was a pretty fascinating process to go through.
No, I can imagine. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge, huge amount of respect to you and the team for being able to do that. So I'm very curious to see, what were some of like the nuanced kind of, decision-making factors that went into that though?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I mean, one, you could see, I think we realized that the consumer business just wasn't going to scale at the rate that we needed it to. And that's hard because we started this business to solve our own problem as parents, right? So it was hard to let that go. And we still have a consumer business. It's just fully organic. We don't invest in the customer acquisition of it. And and it's still growing, but organically. But you could see that there was this great demand. The margins were much better. And you could see that it was something that was scalable and repeatable, and not just in the market that we were in, but like this could be our ticket to expanding to new markets. And this could really bring down the capital cost of expanding to new markets because you had contracts in hand and predictable demand. It changed our marketplace dynamics pretty significantly because again, you have this aggregated demand of you have this many kids, 180 days a year, 2 rides a day. I mean, it makes it much easier. We were able to release a lot of features that care drivers really love, like the ability to claim the same ride for a very specific, for a long period of time and kind of routinize their schedules. It was sort of, there was really no, it really didn't feel like a choice, and it just became a much bigger it became a much bigger market opportunity, a much more exciting market opportunity. And frankly, from a mission and an impact standpoint, it was really exciting. I mean, we'd always been very mission driven, and our mission had always been to make families' lives easier. And when I look back on it, it was really about creating access to opportunity, right? Like access to opportunity for families where parents could continue to focus, to do what they need to do in their careers while not having their kids miss out on certain things, and helping kids get to the right school for them and all of that. But we were serving let's be honest, an upper affluent clientele, which is totally fine. But what we do now is we are really helping some of our most vulnerable youth get access to equitable education. And we are seeing the outcomes of that, which are truly inspiring every single day, and that galvanizes the whole team. And it's just our mission now is really to create opportunity through mobility, and we do that every single day. And it's such a bigger and deeper meaning that we kind of ran towards